Well, I guess my story started back when I was 12 years old on the Norton Little League team, on the Qantas team.
And tell me about, I guess from what I understand, there were African Americans on all the teams kind of spread out in the individual teams within the city, correct?
Well, what happened when they advertised to have the tryouts, it was in the Coalfield Progress. Of course, that's back during the day when you got your news through the newspaper. And we had over 100 boys that showed up at the park to try out for one of the teams. They were going to have 4 teams. And it's my understanding that we had 2 blacks show up. And anyway, the Dr. Litton, or the manager, said, go find 2 of your buddies, and we'll put 1 of you on each team. And that's a story I got. And consequently, we did have a black player on each team, which integrated. And Johnny Blair, he was the player that played on our team, on the Qantas team.
So what was it like? I mean, you guys are just kids. I mean, I'm sure he was just another player.
He was, and I think the thing about it, all of us were kids, and all we wanted to do was play baseball. And it didn't make any difference what color you were. As long as we were out there playing ball, I think we all had an excellent time.
So then the All-Star comes and the best players are pulled from all the different teams, correct?
Well, we play all year long, and back then we were the only Little League team in what they call the Western Division, and consequently we played between ourselves. We did have some away games that our coaches set up, but basically at the end of the season, when they started picking the All-Star team, the coaches get together with the president and they pick the best players as recommended by the coaches. And they had 14 or 15 young men picked, and Harold Mitchell and Johnny Blair were 2 of the blacks that were chosen, and rightly so.
So, as a kid, do you really realize all the hubbub that's going on with the east side of and them not wanting to play?
No, had no idea at all this was going on. All we wanted to do was play ball. And in retrospect, you know, you can see all that, but as a kid growing up, all we did was meet and play ball. And while we were playing ball, I always felt that athletics sort of levels the playing field. And I think that's what happened. Each one, they took each other at face value, and once you put a uniform on, everybody looked the same. So consequently, that wasn't an issue. They rooted for us, we rooted for them. Consequently, we were just a team.
But now that you look back as an adult, you realize how brave the coaches were and how brave you guys and all the players were too, right?
Well, I come at it from a different perspective, because here was 100 guys showing up to try out for baseball, and 2 blacks with their families show up. To me, that took a lot of courage during that time. So consequently, that to me is something that happened. And I believe, you know, looking back on it, all of us involved at that time, it's sort of like a small stone dropped into calm water. It has a ripple effect. And I think all of us that experienced that years later, that we realized that the ripple effect that we had from that certainly made us to the point that we were more openness, more forgiving, and more trying to see things the right way.
What's the emotion going to be like on Saturday?
I think it's going to be great. We're going to recognize some folks, their families, and a lot of what we're seeing, their family members really did not realize the significance of what their parents had done at that time. We have invited the Dr. Litton's family. He's got 2 daughters. I hope that one of them comes at least. The coaches, we've invited their sons and daughters to be there, and we want to basically recognize the leadership for their tenacity in saying, when they were pushed, the easy thing to have done once Charlottesville decided that you can't play on our field because you're integrated. Once they decided that they couldn't play on their field, they wanted to remove the black players, and consequently at that time the leadership held firm. And consequently, no, they're part of our team. They will be on our team. And consequently, they held. The easy thing to have done would be just to say, well, I'm sorry, you blacks just can't play on our team because rules won't let you. And I think at that time that shows the granite of the leadership in terms of rules or not rules. These are part of our boys and these are part of our teams. Consequently, they're going to play.
amazing for any time, but for 1951, I mean, that's incredible.
It was.
I mean, so obviously those coaches had to have a huge influence on you.
Oh yeah, I think any time, and I think anyone that's coached in Little League baseball especially, I've had players in their 30s walk up to me and say, "Coach, how are you doing?" You never forget your Little League coach. And I can say all the coaches that coaches were really honorable men, members of the community, that had the interest of the kids at heart. And I think really that showed through as far as what they were able to accomplish, not only on the field, but if you look later of what they actually accomplished in life as well.
Anything about any of this you want to add, or anything I didn't ask you?
No, I think it's great in terms of we're able to recognize the activities. We had a young lady, Grace Livingston. I'll have to tell this tale because it's so meaningful to me. She showed up for the 2018 reunion. We had a reunion to recognize the players and also to honor the All-Star team for their championship play. And she was one of the speakers, and she made one comment that really stuck with me. She said, "You know, in 1951, when the blacks played with the whites on the Little League team, that was a giant little step." And that stuck with me. And she was right. That was a giant little step. And Norton has always been integrated from that day on up through the present. For 71 years, they've had a Little League charter. And all of that time, they have had an integrated team.